So back in June, the Unitarian Universalist Association held their annual General Assembly. And this congregation sent 4 delegates, including myself, and today we're going to sort of brief you on our experiences there. And first, I want to make sure that you all know what General Assembly is, because I recognize, A, we have some visitors who may not know, and in fact, many of our members may not exactly know what General Assembly is. Basically, once a year, all the congregations throughout the United States and even some of the Canadians and our international Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists and representatives to city, and we all meet in the convention center, and these delegates get together to vote on particular issues, to hear from the association staff, like the president, the treasurer, and the moderator, thank you. And so we get information from, in a very direct way, from the mothership. And we also have the opportunity to communicate back with them, and very importantly, with each other. And it's an extremely exciting time, yeah. Katie was just doing big hands, because it's very exciting to be there among 4,000 or so other Unitarian Universalists. And to think this isn't all of the Unitarian Universalists, there are more than this. But it's an amazing sensation to be with that many people, working together, struggling together, doing social action together, teaching each other, of course learning from each other, some arguing with each other, worshiping with each other. It is an amazing, exhausting, fulfilling week. One of the main benefits of that is that the people who go there get their head a little bit above the waterline of our own congregation. And we have a very nice pond here, but it's nice to get up above the surface of it and look around and see what other creatures are doing in their ponds, and we bring that back here. And either they're making the same mistakes we are, which is actually kind of a nice feeling, or they've got some piece of information that we can apply to ourselves, or we've got some piece of information that we could offer to them. So it's an amazing experience, and I observed, while I was there, 2 main themes emerging from me about GA. The theme of GA was love reaches out. That was the theme. That was their theme. The themes that I saw were a little bit, well, it worked together. But for me, both at GA and in Unitarian Universalism in general right now, I'm seeing a return to our cornerstones, to our foundations of social justice and liturgical/theological innovation. And I will say more about that as we move through, but I want to give each of our delegates a chance to let you know what they experienced at GA, and so we have Sabella.
And he expects me to tell you in 2 minutes. Impossible. So, just a few highlights. One of the highlights at almost every GA, I think, is the Ware Lecture. If you don't know what it is, Martin Luther King gave one. That should tell you something. There? Okay. So Martin Luther King gave one of the Ware Lectures, so that should tell you the importance of the Ware Lecture, I think.
Not this year, though.
Not this year. He wasn't there, unfortunately. But we had Sister Simone Campbell, and if you don't know who that is, she wrote a book, The Nun on the Bus. She's the grassroots starter of the campaign Nuns on the Bus, and does she know her stuff? She insisted that we cannot stop our justice work until all of us are included. Not 1% of us, not 99% of us, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, but every single one of us. She said, walk towards trouble, keep walking towards trouble until you're done causing the change that has to happen. So everyone should read her book, go to YouTube, look at her interviews. She rocked the house. And workshop that I attended, just one of the many, was on Faithify. Faithify is a brand new UU crowdfunding website that was launched while we were at GA. It's already super successful, and it can be used by any individual UU or any congregation to fund for a service trip, a building project, a social justice activity, or anything else you can think of that's UU related. So that's really exciting. One of the activities that wasn't really in the official program, but that was part of GA, was called Let's Talk, Let's Listen. And it was like a super condensed small group ministry thing. It was actually during dinner, and we found a place at round tables with 8 strangers. And an hour later, we left the table as friends. It was really impressive. At my table, there was a woman called Mary. It was her first GA. And she shared how she had just recently helped her 18-year-old son legally change his name to Ellie because he identifies as a girl. She was so grateful because in her congregation where he grew up, he had never felt not valued. And that's our faith. The synergy and bridging worship that evening was very, very emotional. I sat next to Mary, and her son, who was 18, bridged. And right there, he identified as a girl, and was the very first time he introduced himself as Ellie in public, on the stage, in front of 4,500 people. I'm still tearing up on that. One workshop I attended was on adaptive leadership. And I learned that in general, when there's a big change in a congregation, like something we're going through soon here, or there are problems to be talked about, almost always it will bring out the same emotional issues for people. And this means that there are deeper issues that really need to be dealt with. And so this workshop sort of gave us an outline to help congregants deal with those deeper issues that might come up, so that the thing that you wanted to accomplish can actually be accomplished. I thought that was certainly something that our congregation could benefit from looking into a little more. And then one of the really fun things was the Water Fire Festival, which is a festival in Providence every summer. And the UUA this year sponsored it. And so they sent thousands of us in our yellow love shirts to walk among everybody at the festival. And we all sang songs about reaching out in love. And many people came to the UUA tent, and they found out who those love people are. And they found out about our faith. And of course, Emma's Revolution was there, the band that always is at GA and sings lots of UU songs. They wrote a new song about reaching out in love, and it was just really fun to be part of that. So GA is business, workshops, but also lots of fun. Thank you.
So for these interspersed hymns, it's one hymn, it's a fire of commitment, and we're going to stay seated. We're going to sing one verse in response to each homily or word offering. So 1028, it's in the teal hymnal. So, there's a lot going on at GA, General Assembly, sorry for the shorthand. And it's not always easy. Just like Unitarian Universalism is not always easy. It shouldn't be easy, in fact. Religion makes demands. Religion should make demands. Causes you and compels you to sacrifice some things that you might hold dear. So for the week of GA, what you are sacrificing is some time and money to get there. That's one thing. But also, while you're there, you are sacrificing rest. You are sometimes sacrificing your comfort, both psychologically, spiritually, and physically, at different times, sometimes all at the same time. And sometimes you're sacrificing your autonomy. You don't always get your way. And that, of course, applies to us here at MVUU as well as in our larger association. It's one of our principles is that we uphold is the democratic process. And the thing about the democratic process is that is a institutionalized reflection of our very first principle, which is the inherent worth and dignity of all people. The democratic process recognizes the inherent worth and dignity of all people by hearing those who would be heard in an even-handed process. It recognizes the dignity of the speaker and those who would hear the speaker. And that is all well and good, but when you lose, because democracy also implies voting, and voting implies that unless it's unanimous, and I don't know if I've seen a Unitarian Universalist event that was unanimous, someone's going to lose. And that can be difficult. And so the spiritual work at that point is amazing and truly rewarding, and that is when you keep the faith despite losing the vote. And with that, I give you Richard.
I think he's talking about me. Well, I want to say right off the bat, therefore, that this is not all about me. But I do want to know, did you see on our website, MVUU website, that wonderful picture of me carrying the banner at the opening night ceremony? I really have to thank Debbie Roberts for that picture. It was just fuzzy enough to make me look good. Well, I was very happy to be one of your delegates. This year was my 14th General Assembly. And so I wear this badge with pride, and I carry the delegate voting card with purpose. The one thing that Reverend Ferris asked me to do as a delegate was to do what I could to see that the study and action issue on what we're calling escalating inequality was adopted by the delegates. Because, of course, here at MVUU, you may remember that we all decided at an open meeting of the JCC, of the Justice Coordinating Committee, that we would take on income disparity, I think we call it, income disparity, as our focal social justice issue. But I had my own mission at GA. And for that, I'm going to do what I've seen Ron do before. I'm going to change shirts. If you'll pardon me a minute. There. I vote for creating peace. I'll explain that to you in a minute. I spent a lot of time at GA this year, more so than other years, in the exhibit hall. Now, here in the exhibit hall, you can see what I call the wider Unitarian Universalist movement. There are more than 100, I think 122 this year, 122 organizations and individuals present in the exhibit hall, hawking their wares and promoting their values. And I was there to do the work of the UU Peace Ministry Network. That's a small and barely recognized organization that started with the adoption of the Statement of Conscience in 2010. That is the Statement of Conscience on creating peace, in which we, as Unitarians, believe all of our values require us to work for transforming a world of violence and war to a culture of nonviolence and peace. And we have been working for more than a year now on the conflict in Syria. And we focused on helping the victims of the violence there, the Syrians who fled the country, the Syrians who were trapped in their country. Because, for a number of reasons, certainly one was the brutality of the Assad regime. and the difficulty of meeting the needs of those refugees, both within Syria and outside, where they overwhelmed surrounding countries. And one of the things we can do to promote the idea first that these people need help, both as an act of humanitarian mercy and as an act of nonviolence to meet the violence of that war. One of the things we can do there at GA is to work to establish an action of immediate witness. This is a particular kind of resolution that is sponsored and shepherded by the UU Commission on Social Witness. They are, by our bylaws, in charge of most social justice work for the UUA. Well, I met a lot of people, talked with a lot of people in the exhibit hall and outside the exhibit hall. That was really a wonderful experience, and having a chance to hear what others had to say. And all of that talking, walking, and talking was because getting on the agenda at GA is done by petition. And we submitted our petition for our resolution to the commission, and the commission accepted it. We were one of, I believe, 8 resolutions to be considered. But in this process and procedure, the delegates are only able to select 3 resolutions. And we went through a series of steps to reach that final vote. And in the final vote, we did not make it to the final 3. And therefore, our effort at that GA did not meet success. But as I said, this is not all about me. It is not all about the UU Ministry for Peace. It really still is about the humanitarian aid for the Syrians who need that help so desperately. And so we did, of course, review and wondered, well, where did we not succeed? It was not with the delegates. We quibbled about the process, but really we did not succeed because we did not have the groundwork that we needed. We did not build up the energy that we needed to get it passed. And so we continued right away. Within a week, we were back at work planning our next steps. Well, it was a disappointment, but it was not the end of the day. I want to end by recalling one morning worship service, the only morning worship service that I got to. The minister preacher was taking up the theme, as Ron has said, love reaches out. And to me, it reflected on what we were trying to do with our action of immediate witness to help the Syrian refugees. And he said, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. As I said, these words really struck with me. We are not indifferent to others near or far. But let's, in the words of the sister, let's walk toward trouble with love. And love came to mean, even though I thought it was such a cliche, love came to mean so important for our faith. I enthusiastically, by the way, promoted and voted for the congregational study issue on escalating inequality, which won the day.
That's right. The entire General Assembly adopted for this congregational study action issue, economic inequality or economic disparity. So that will be the focus of a lot of study and generation of materials from the UUA as well as ourselves. And as you can see, Richard is still committed to helping the people, the refugees of Syria, still committed to Unitarian Universalism, still committed and sad to leave you all. And so with that commitment in mind, I invite you to sing verse number 2. Debbie Roberts.
Hi, guys. I didn't bring my other clothes to change them, but I'm Debbie Roberts, and I'm actually on the East Coast. And so she sent her words, and I'm going to read them for you. This was my first time at GA, and I loved it. It was inspiring to be in a place where there were thousands of people who think the same way I do, and who are passionate about the same issues I am. I chose many of the workshops I attended because they seemed to be related to my new role as co-chair of the membership committee. I learned about various ways to use technology to attract potential members and how to connect with and give a voice to special interest groups within the congregation. While these workshops provided me with great information, my passion was aroused by workshops on protest songs, immigration issues, and economic disparity. I haven't felt this fired up since the late 60s and early 70s. Dr. Aviva Chomsky from Salem State University in Massachusetts provided a wealth of factual information about undocumented immigrants, but also spoke passionately about the true causes of this situation and what we need to do to fix the problem. A solution that does not involve building more fences along the border or deploying more Border Patrol agents. I was also inspired by reports of what other congregations have done to serve struggling members in the community where they are located. For me, the most lasting messages were about social justice issues, and I was fired up to go forth and do something meaningful to address these issues. GA votes every other year on a social justice issue that will be the focus of their efforts of the following 4 years. 2 years ago, the issue that was chosen was immigration, and the UUA spent the following 2 years developing materials for churches to use in their own efforts around this issue. This year, the delegates chose economic disparity as the issue to explore over the next 2 years. Maybe our congregation was prescient in adopting this as our social justice focus. In any case, we will have the support of the UUA as materials are developed and made available to churches across the country. In the weeks since GA, the urge to act immediately has waned somewhat, although I have been involved in counteracting the hate mongers who have been very vocal in their opposition to undocumented children being housed at a nearby Air Force base. Actions that are led by the minister of my summer UU home. Although it will be 2 months before I get back to MVUU, I am hoping that I will return to a congregation that is also fired up to act on social action issues. I would love to go back to GA next year in Portland, Oregon, to be further inspired and motivated to act. The worship services were wonderful, filled with energy and music and inspirational thoughts. My only regret is that in 4 days, we only got to sing Spirit of Life once.
Well, Spirit of Life was in abundance, just not in song. There was a lot of life there at GA. And you saw there, right, 2 years ago in Phoenix, we voted to focus on immigration. This year we voted to focus on economic disparity. You think that we here in MVUU might have a role to play in both of those? Yes. I mean, certainly we adopted the later, and we are in the middle of the former. And they are, by the way, related. So, that gets into the two themes that I saw emerging, both in our faith writ large and at GA in particular. And those two themes were innovation and social action. So innovation is another word for that bedrock of our faith, revision. Revision. If there's one thing, they ask you, what a Unitarian Universalist? You could say we're revisers. We revision, and then we revision. Viva la revolution. So the thing about this is, of course, both of these are sort of traditional Unitarian Universalist standbys. In fact, there are foundation stones in many ways. So it's not like this was some new development necessarily, but what it did bring to mind is that when we tend to focus on them, when they gather, each of these issues, themes, gather energy to themselves, it's more of a highlight than a constant. So there are points through our history where we're radical innovators and radical advocates for justice, and then we kind of cruise along, we resettle into our thing, until maybe there's a need either coming from outside our walls or from within ourselves, and we do it again. Well, right now, we are doing it again. So the highlight actually, oddly, becomes the narrative. And maybe that's necessary, maybe that's a mistake. But right now, we're hitting, I think, a highlight point once again. And I like to call this Unitarian Universalist fundamentalism. In a very generous way. That's what I'm saying. It is. We're returning to our foundations. We are returning to what is fundamental to our faith, and that is innovation and social action or justice. So, liturgical innovation, right? We are taking on this activity and this challenge in order to meet the demand of this moment in history where people are dropping away from churches or people are just not being brought up in churches. So we are trying to meet and evolve to meet the demand of this moment in history, which may or may not be just a blip. I don't know. It's hard. We can't tell until it's over. It may last for 50 years. It may last for 1,000. But we have to consider what the needs are currently. Do we have the answers to the questions that cause religion? These questions that are both eternal and particular to our time. So we are asking ourselves, do we have the answers? What are our answers? Are they actually addressing the questions being asked? And these answers take the form, one of the forms that they take anyway, is liturgical style, how we engage the Spirit together, commonly called worship. These forms occur in our institutional structure and mechanisms. So in our corporate engagement of the Spirit, in our institutional structure, and in the mechanisms that support both of those things. So for instance, I attended 3 wildly different styles of worship while I was at GA. I've spoken about that before, and there are aspects of all of them that really spoke to me, and aspects of some of them that repelled me. So innovation doesn't mean success every time, or it might mean success for you, but not for you, and we'll work that out. And it's broad-based, so different churches are doing different things, and hopefully 1 or 2 of those will, like in evolution, 1 or 2 adaptations wind up being successful, and even they can combine, who knows. And we here are doing some innovation ourselves. Also, technology is changing, and the UUA is trying to change with it. You heard Sabella talk about Faithify, and I think Debbie mentioned some technological solutions to some interesting, or that have applications to what we're doing here. And to fundraising, Tom Bunch is not here today, but there's some interesting stuff there. Faithify. We're also moving to regionalization. So right now, we have districts, and we've been sort of district focused. Ours is the Pacific Southwest District. It includes Las Vegas, Southern California, and Arizona. But now we're focusing on regions, so that it will go from Washington, from Canada to Mexico, and all the way into Wyoming and down. And that will allow us to share resources and to hopefully maximize those resources. And that idea is trickling down to even the congregations, so that, for instance, when we do our remissioning workshop in January, we're going to do that with all 3 other Southern Arizona, we call ourselves the Baja 4. The Baja Arizona cohort of Unitarian Universalist churches are all going to get together. 4 churches will go in. There will be 4 churches, 1 process, 4 mission statements. But in there, we will be able to share and learn from each other as well as differentiate from each other. So it's very exciting. And that is a theme that's trickling down. So that is an innovation, right? Institutionalized innovation. So we have institutionalized innovation in our mechanisms, in our institution, and in our worship, and our works of the Spirit. And the works of our hands and the works of our spirit, of course, necessarily connected, right? Even if you're unaware of it, it's still true. And if you're unaware of it, it's at your own peril. So, while social action is one of the themes that's emerging, I would not say that social action or that justice, I would not say that it's the backbone of Unitarian Universalism. That's not what I would say. But what I would say is if we are not involved in justice, then our backbone isn't worth very much. So this doesn't have to be necessarily grandiose. Our goal does not necessarily have to be an amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. Kindness is social action. In fact, it may likely begin with kindness to yourself and then to those most immediately nearby. Kindness in social action. Collective kindness is, well, it's collective. I don't want to say it's more powerful than personal kindness, because that can be fundamentally transformative in and of itself. But when we get together and are kind as a group, we can make real waves. You can be the most pious, most comprehensively practicing spirit master in the universe. But if kindness is not the outcome, what's the point? So without kindness, I don't think it's even possible to be a sage of that kind. Without kindness, religion becomes self-indulgence. So the takeaway from today is to be kind. You are connected. You are interconnected. Your relationships make up your reality and make up you. So be kind. Be kind to yourself and be kind to all that you see. And then be corporately kind. And I would like to invite you after service, which is going to end in a matter of minutes, to get your coffee and come back in here, and I will describe a way that we can be corporately kind today and this week, right now, that will have a real and lasting impact on one family in our community. With that, I would like for you all to express a very kind hello to our new director of music, who has just joined us. Her name is Katie V, and we'll just keep it at that. It's not a secret, but it's not a secret mission, but it might be mission impossible. Well, we look forward so much to what you're going to bring to us here, and let's see, the first choir practice is a week and a half away, Wednesday, and I look forward to seeing what Katie does with the music in this church. It's a very exciting time for us here as we ramp into the new year. Thank you for coming, Katie. And you'll hear more from Katie, obviously, in the coming months. We just wanted her to show up and say hello, and for you to have a chance to hound her incessantly with questions after the service. All right, so we'll close with our fire of commitment, verse number 3.